The topic for today's podcast comes from a listener request. Now, full disclosure, that listener just so happens to be my wife, but still, she's a listener and she requested it. You see, she recently had an opportunity to visit South Padre Island, which sits near the very southernmost tip of Texas. And there she saw a bird, a green jay, and asked if I'd do an episode about it. And you know what? I honestly didn't know there was such a bird as a green jay, so heck yeah, let's take a closer look at a corvid that you've probably never heard of. I know I hadn't. The green jay. Now, you've probably heard of a blue jay, at least if you live in the US or Canada. Blue jays are common across most of the United States and a large swath of Canada. And of course, Toronto's Major League Baseball team is named the Blue Jays. But a green jay? Never heard of it. And I guess that's not too surprising since they're found on the tip of Texas, Mexico's Gulf Coast and Yucatan Peninsula, along with a narrow strip of southwestern Mexico's Pacific coast, and then down into Belize, the northern half of Guatemala, and just a tiny little piece of Honduras. Altogether, there's 7 subspecies. 8 if you include the Inca jay, which lives in South America, 900 miles, 1,600 kilometers, from the nearest Central American green jay population. The Inca jay is sometimes considered another species of green jay. It just depends on who you talk to. But the two different groups differ in color, calls, and habitat use, so they may be, and probably are in fact, different but closely related species. And in fact, a 2010 study that looked at the mitochondrial DNA found clear genetic differences that support these two birds being separate species. Although it also indicated that further research was required to confirm those findings, and there's no words on whether or not that's happened yet. But anyways, green jays are beautiful birds. They average 10 to 11 and a half inches long, 25 to 29 centimeters, so roughly the same size as their blue jay cousins. They have black faces with bright blue cheeks and eyebrow-like spots. Yellowish white feathers with blue tips adorn the top of their head and the nape of their neck. The wings and back are a rich green, and the tail is a bluish green. The breast and underparts range from a brilliant bright yellow in the south to pale green in the north. And all this is complemented by a black bill and eyes that are either bright yellow in the southerly subspecies or brown in the north. So, in summary, it's a beautiful bird that looks right at home in the tropics. In South Texas, green jays inhabit woodlands and scrubby thickets, often along waterways. They're also known to visit fruit plantations, particularly citrus trees. Farther south, they frequent many different types of wooded habitats, from lowland forests and plantations to high elevation rainforests, especially where there's gaps in the trees. Like most corvids, green jays are omnivores, and like other jays and crows, green jays are incredibly versatile foragers, equally comfortable at picking, gleaning, pouncing, and even fly catching. They eat a wide variety of insects, small vertebrates, seeds, and fruit, along with, of course, scavenging human trash. Grasshoppers, crickets, caterpillars, and flies are common insect prey, but they'll also sometimes eat spiders, small lizards and frogs, and the eggs and nestlings of other birds. The seeds of several tree species are also an important part of their diet, especially during cold weather when insects may be less available. And like many of their corvid cousins, they're known to cache acorns for later use when those acorns are available. On the ground, green jays move around leaf litter with their bills to expose arthropods, which they capture with a pounce and a peck. They'll also take advantage of outbreaks of caterpillars or visit dead trees to feed on the abundant insects often found there. But here's where green jays start to get really interesting. They'll use sticks to pry up loose bark, exposing insects, which makes them one of the few North American bird species known to use tools. Also, green jays forage in family groups, moving together in the same direction, as each individual explores a different tree or shrub, scanning for insects or other food before hopping or flying to a new vantage point. Some individuals work from the base of the tree to the crown, searching systematically before moving on to the next tree. But let's talk more about that family group. A flock of green jays consists of a breeding pair, the current year's nestlings, and 1 year olds, non breeding jays from the previous year's nest. On a side note, I'd like to point out that this is the same family grouping found in wolves, coyotes, and beavers, just to name a few. But you won't ever hear anybody talking about the alpha green jay or a pack of beavers. But I digress. Green jay pairs are monogamous throughout the season and remain in contact throughout the breeding season. Courting adults may preen each other while giving soft calls, and females solicit courtship feeding by begging. Females indicate their readiness for mating by bobbing and fluffing out their body plumage. The couple picks out the nest site, an average of 8.5 feet, 2.5 meters, up in dense, brushy vegetation, and then they build the nest, a thin walled bowl of sticks lined with roots, moss, grasses, vines, and leaves, again together. The female lays 3 to 5 eggs, and the pair shares both incubation duties and feeding the nestlings. The yearlings, though, don't help feed their younger siblings. Their job is to defend the territory, which in Texas averages about 40 acres or 0.16 square kilometers. When predators or other green jays are detected in the family territory, the yearling birds call loudly and might even give chase, often making swooping dives at the intruder, sometimes with the help of their dad. In the mornings and evenings during the breeding season, younger birds greet the adults by calling and hopping. Now, mom continues to care for the fledglings after they leave the nest, while dad starts spending more time with the yearlings, joining them on their daily territorial patrols. Because when the newest brood of nestlings have fledged, dad gives the oldest ones the old heave-ho, ejecting them from the family flock and driving them out of the territory. Sometimes kids just need a little push and some tough love to become independent, I guess. On a side note, Inca jays, those South American green jay cousins, keep their offspring around longer, usually for several years, and those youngsters help their parents raise more chicks. I guess maybe if the green jay's young pitched in a little more around the nest, you know what I'm saying, Dad wouldn't send them packing. Now, corvids aren't known for having lovely songs. I mean, the genus name for blue jays, Cyanocida, can essentially be translated as blue chatterer, and in this regard, green jays are no exception. But many corvids are known for having an extensive vocal repertoire, and again, green jays are no exception. The bird's most common call is described as a rash, rash, rash sound, but many other unusual notes can also occur. One of their most distinctive calls sounds like an alarm bell. Other calls are used in specific social contexts and have been described as sounding like screaming, bubbling, rattling, buzzing, peeping, and clicking. Also, green jays, like blue jays, are excellent mimics. When we lived in Virginia, the blue jays at Dispatches HQ would mimic with incredible accuracy the calls of red shouldered hawks. It wasn't unusual for me to hear red shouldered hawks, but find blue jays instead. Likewise, in Texas, green jays will imitate the call of a variety of hawks. Now, this imitation is not done as a form of hawk flattery, but rather as either a warning that a predator is near, or as a way to scare other birds away from food that the jays want for themselves. For example, the plain chachacalas a chicken-like bird that feeds on many of the same seeds and invertebrates as the jays. But during the breeding season, April through June, these garrulous birds settle down and get a little bit quieter. Now, average life expectancy for a green jay in the wild is 5 to 8 years, but the oldest recorded green jay, a Texas bird, was 11 years and 7 months. Thanks to being a generalist forager with an adaptable diet, the green jay is a common species throughout most of its wide range. In fact, its adaptability means that its population is thought to be increasing, at least in Texas, since the clearing of forests is creating new areas of suitable habitat. Between the years of 1966 and 2015, green jay populations in Texas grew an estimated 6.9% per year as they expanded their range northward. But Texas constitutes only a small portion of their range. Partners in Flight estimates a global breeding population of 880,000, 60,000 of which breed in the United States. Still, overall green jay populations at least appear to be stable. But that could change if we're not careful. Conservation challenges green jays face include destruction of habitat, particularly native to Tamaulipan brushland, which constitutes much of the species' primary habitat in southern Texas and northeastern Mexico. Okay, final fun facts. Going back to the subject of scientific names, which I'm becoming more and more interested in, even if I have trouble pronouncing them correctly, the genus and species name for green jays is Cyanocorax luxuosus. Cyanocorax roughly translates to dark blue raven, and luxuosus to luxurious. So the green jay is a luxurious dark blue raven. And lastly, where their ranges overlap in South Texas, green jays and blue jays can apparently interbreed. I say apparently because only a single individual, a bird informally dubbed a grue jay, has ever been documented. First documented in May of 2023, researchers from the University of Texas captured the bird, collected blood samples, and banded it, and then released it. They determined that it's the offspring of a female green jay and a male blue jay. The predominant blue color of the back and tail is mostly similar to the blue jay, but it also has the crown, nasal tufts, and black facial mask of the green jay. And unlike either parent, its chin and upper throat are blue. It also shares vocal characteristics with both parent species. The most recent common ancestor of blue and green jays lived at least 7 million years ago, so their hybridization is a little bit surprising. But as the green jay pushes its range farther north, increasing the overlap with their blue jay cousins, I suppose it could become more common. And that's where we're going to end today. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider sending some financial support my way. Here's several ways you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month. And with 3 paid months, you get free Dispatches from the Forest merch. Find all the details at patreon.com/dispatches from the forest. You can donate through either PayPal or Venmo using my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com, which is also how you can contact me if you have a question, comment, or a request for a future episode. My wife didn't need to email me, she just told me over dinner. You can also donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd, or you can send a check if that's what you prefer. Just send me a message and I'll send you my mailing address. And of course, there's Dispatches from the Forest merch for sale. Go check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatches from the forest. Click on products and see everything that we have to offer. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dispatches from the Forest recognizes that the lands where we live, work, and recreate are the traditional homelands of the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho people. We understand that this land holds immense significance for the original stewards, native nations, and peoples of this region. The Dispatches from the Forest podcast is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.